We'll go over to Ted now in California. Hi, Ted.
Hi, Patrick. Good morning. I had a
Morning.
question regarding a call yesterday by a woman by the name of Katie where she was in a toxic relationship with her husband because he was verbally abusive to her, among other things I picked up on. And you gave a great analogy as far as swearing at your spouse is equivalent to striking them in the face. So that really resonated with me because I'm guilty of that. And I've done that. I catch myself doing it. I ask for forgiveness, immediately after I do it. But my spouse, she's no angel, and she gives what she gets basically, and she just knows how to push every single one of my buttons. And it appears to me at times that when I'm swearing, I'm actually swearing at Satan. I'm embarrassed by my actions. I hate to think that I never hit women physically ever, and just to know that my words are equivalent to that, I'm embarrassed by it. But I wanted your opinion on how does somebody who's in a toxic relationship, but it goes both ways. It's just not one-sided. Like I said, she just knows how to bring out the very, very worst in me. We have 3 children together, and really the only reason why I am there is because of them, or else I would have left a long time ago. Just because
Are you married in the church?
I'm not married in the church.
Okay. So it's a civil marriage, yeah?
It's a civil marriage. I'm sorry. Yes, It is.
First of all, Ted, I want to go on record and say I really admire you, number one, for your candor, your honesty, your humility, not only for admitting this to yourself, but also on the radio because other people are listening and learning from what you're saying. So you have my admiration for being a stand-up guy and looking in the mirror and saying, you know what, I am guilty of that. A lot of people couldn't do what you're doing right now, Ted. So kudos to you.
Well, it's because of what you said is the reason I called. So thank you as well for the analogy that you gave.
For sure. So there are several layers here, obviously. I'm assuming that you yourself are Catholic. Is your wife Catholic?
No, I'm Catholic, and she's Protestant.
Got it. Okay. Well, my advice would be the same as yesterday, and that would be, at the very least, just force yourself to stop doing this. And you have the power to do it. We can all control our tongues. It sometimes takes a lot of work, but we can. Jesus said in Matthew 15, he says, it's not what goes into the mouth that defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth that defiles a man. And St. James, he talks about in James chapter 3, he says, the tongue is a fire. The tongue is an unrighteous world among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the cycle of nature and set on fire by hell. So that's figurative speech, but his point is that if you don't control your tongue becomes, as he says in verse 8, a restless evil full of deadly poison. And we can poison our relationships, and people do poison their relationships when they allow their mouth to run rampant and say things that sometimes you can never recover from. Sometimes the wounds are so deep that they never fully heal. So my first advice would be just tell yourself, I am not going to do this anymore. And when you feel those words coming up, just bite your lip or move out of the area and don't be in the same room when you're in that frame of mind. I mean, sometimes that's the best thing to do when you're having a spat, is to just say, let's cool off, and when we're both not angry, then we can talk about it. But right now, it's not really a good idea because it'll just make matters worse. But it's like anything else that is habitual, maybe smoking or anything else. You have the power to say, no, I'm not going to do it. And it may be difficult, but you'll be cultivating the virtue of purity of speech. And the more you cultivate that, it's not habitual to you right now. It's not your default, right, to be pure of speech. Your default is the opposite. So the way to kill that weed is to just work at it over and over and over again, like lifting weights and you're building muscle. Eventually, it will become your default, and you will have that stable discipline in your life of just refraining from using evil speech, especially in a context like this.
That's good advice. I know it's even bad with text messaging. I even do it in text messages. So I know it's going to be easier said than done, but that is something. I was once told that if you do that, I think it might even be in the Bible, that you'll be in hell with your tongue on fire. And so that was kind of a rude awakening. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the least thing I want to be is the guy in hell with his tongue on fire.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, St. James says in chapter 3, verse 6, he says, the tongue is a fire. It says the tongue is an unrighteous world among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the cycle of nature, and set on fire by hell. That may be the passage you're thinking of. So the tongue is set on fire by hell. Pretty vivid imagery. Now, I have another question.
For sure, to say the least. Mm-hmm.
I have another question, Ted. Have you considered, and maybe you have, but have you considered the damage this has done to your children, seeing dad swearing at mom and vice versa?
Absolutely. Total embarrassment. Makes me want to leave immediately, and I just feel to myself that, I should tear up my father card for doing it. It's just, they deserve better.
I would recommend that in addition to, if you don't mind me giving advice, and I suppose you don't because you called me, in addition to making this change in your life and just promising yourself, I'm not going to do this anymore. Lord, help me. Guardian angel, help me. But I would also sit down with your children, either together or individually, and apologize to them and tell them how sorry you are that they saw this activity on your part, and tell them, I am really going to be working very hard with God's grace to never do this again. And I want you to know that that is not the right way for you to speak. You shouldn't talk to your husband or your wife that way when you get older. And if they see you really taking the bull by the horns here and acknowledging it and apologizing to them, I think you can restore a lot of what may have been damaged from them seeing this going on. I think you will gain so much credibility in their eyes because you're doing this and you're letting them know that you're doing this,
Absolutely. Yeah, that's for sure. I certainly will do that. They're of ages where they would understand. That's the least thing I want to do is just, have them grow up. I as a Catholic, and just not seeing my mom and dad do that, it's just like, what have I become? And it's just, I've literally become an embarrassment to myself and to my children. But like I said, she's no angel, and it's just I'm not the kind of dad that has a hard day at work and come home and I just start swearing at her. It's not that case, I'm in my right mind, but she's able to set me off and push the buttons. And
there's another upside here, Ted, if you don't mind my interruption. Excuse me. There's another potential huge upside, and that is when your wife suddenly sees you're no longer doing what you were doing. That's going to rattle her. That's going to, at the very least, it's going to get her attention in a big way, and she's going to notice it, that you're not returning that kind of verbal abuse to her. And I predict that the upside here for you is that the more you do this, the more you become a man of pure speech, the more she will back away from that as well. And she'll see your good example, and that may have a really profound effect on her as well. We can hope and pray for that, right?
Absolutely.
And that, my friend, is exerting true spiritual leadership in the family. That's what a spiritual leader does. That's what the father figure who is helping his family get to heaven, that's the sign of a true leader, when you're leading in the right direction and others see that and they follow you.
Excellent. That's something I can work with. And I appreciate your time, and I definitely appreciate your show. And thank you for making me laugh every morning. You could have also been a comedian, I feel. But thank you for everything.
Thank you, Ted. Hang in there. You can do this when you go to confession next time. Bring it all up and, get it out there in the open. Put this at the foot of the cross, and Jesus will heal this. And I have a feeling the next time we talk, you're going to be a much happier guy.
Thank you, Patrick.
You're welcome, Ted. God bless you. How about Anna in Buda, Texas? Anna, welcome.
Good morning. I just wanted to comment on Ted's call about him and his wife.
Yeah.
That was my husband and I was actually Ted. But I would go talk to the priest. We went through Catholic Charities local here in Austin and did marriage counseling, and then we did individual, and then we moved on and went separate, and we still did marriage counseling. And the one thing that we both learned, because before we didn't have our daughter and we struggled, and now we do have her, was I was raised the way he was. My parent, like my example was.
Let me interrupt you, because there are people listening right now who don't really know what you mean by that because they didn't hear Ted's call. So can you kind of frame it so people understand what it is you're referring to?
Whenever my husband and I would fight, I mean, we would he would cuss more than I would because I just am not a big cusser, but I would know how to respond back without cussing and attack. And so we would attack each other verbally, never physically, but verbally. And his words were with, bad words.
So what I heard was that you didn't cuss, but you knew how to, in essence, push his buttons and things would just get ugly. Is that right?
Correct. Like, I didn't have to cuss to make him feel bad the way he would verbally make me feel bad, but I knew if I insulted in a certain way, then I knew that would hurt him. So through the counseling and through talk, I was reacting to what he was saying, but he was hashing out what you said, what happened in his past, his childhood, any trauma that he saw, the way his parents were. And so I slowly started stepping back, and my side of the family has always been very strong-willed in our faith. And so I started listening to you guys more. I started doing Drew Mariani with the chaplet, and now I do the daily rosary. And slowly but surely I started to see the difference. And I not would hold back, but I would let him say whatever he wanted to say, and I would just stay quiet. And I said, I'm not going to be that person anymore. I'm not going to give in, and we can have this conversation when you stop being upset and you come down. And my comments would always be, I wasn't raised this way. I didn't see it. So to me, it's not okay, and I don't want, if we have a son or daughter, to repeat that. Now we have a daughter, and I comment to him, and I say, remember, you don't want her to find somebody with similar traits that are not what you want to see your daughter being treated. Right. And so it did. I mean, we're now going on 13 years in December, God willingly. And I'm not kidding you, the beginning 7-8 years of our marriage were horrible. And I'm like, we suffered a lot with losses of our kids. Mm-hmm. And I tell him, I think, not that I appreciate going through, burying your babies, but we were not in the position to have them, and God knew why. I was never upset with God. I understood there was a reason, and now I say we needed to grow, and we needed to overcome whatever was going to stop us from being able to raise our children without repeating the cycle. And I'm grateful to God because now we do have our daughter, and my husband's a total different person where he actually says that he sees where his parents were wrong and failed him, and he understands that, and he doesn't want to be that person. And so it does take time, but it also takes the effort that you have to hold your tongue, and they're going to say whatever they want to say, but you can't react to it, which is very hard. But with prayer, it will work. And I'm grateful now that my daughter sees the man I met, and oh my gosh, she loves her daddy. So I just want Ted to know that it does take time, because here we are going on 13 and I'm barely enjoying 5 years later. Mm-hmm. And, it's worth it though, because now I understand he was a victim of his childhood, and there's nothing I could do about that. Like, his anger was not towards me. It was, what he went through. We, in our culture, it's not common to go to therapy. It's not common to talk about things. And so I think when I was, hey, we need to go, that got him to understand it's okay to talk. It's okay to express whatever you have. And it just takes a lot of time.
Well, you are a living, walking, breathing example of the victory that's available for those who want it. You just have to want it and be willing to do what it takes, and you can get it.
Yes, you can. So just wanted to let Ted know that you can do it. It just takes patience and the willing to not give up and give in.
Yes, absolutely. Anna, you're raising an issue here that ties into another very important aspect of marriage that I want to talk about when we come back from this break at the top of the hour. And I'm going to share with you, I hope you'll keep listening, I'm going to share with you what research has shown to be the number one predictor of a divorce that's a number one predictor in marriages, and it's probably not what most people think it is. So in another few minutes, when we come back from this timeout, I'm going to share that because it does tie into what you're referring to. But I'm so happy for you. And I can imagine your daughter, however old she is, imagine if you and your husband hadn't turned this corner. Imagine the devastating effect it would have on her to grow up in a home where mom and dad were at each other's throats and using swear words and things. I can't even imagine. Can you?
No, I can't. That's why I'm super grateful. She's going to be 4 in December, but to me it's like I wasn't raised in that family. So to me it was weird, but I had to, quote unquote defend myself. And now I love that my daughter feels she's carefree. She's a normal toddler, 3-4-year-old, enjoying stuff and doesn't understand or know any different.
Because, and a big part of that is because she's secure in the knowledge that mom and dad love each other. She doesn't need to have it explained at a deep level. She can rest in that security, knowing that mom loves dad and dad loves mom and everything's good with the world. Little kids, when they have that, it's so much better for them, so much better than when they see mom and dad angry with each other.
I mean, I do say obviously the loss of our children is always horrible, but there is a reason. And I think we would have been horrible parents if, they would have had survived and had immense health issues. It would just be another thing on top of another thing. And so everything in God's time. My grandma always raised us that way. And I laugh about it because I think I see what you're telling me. I see it.
Yeah. God bless you, Anna. Great conversation. Thank you for being so heartfelt and sharing that with us.
For more of The Patrick Madrid Show, visit relevantradio.com/Patrick.